What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Wednesday edition of Back Your Play with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. Hope everyone's having a good sports week. Tomorrow, Thursday, NBA draft. We're going to talk some NFL anyway. You know, it's so funny because I got my guy on my NBA inside. I don't know why, for some reason, I'm thinking the NFL's right around the corner. Oh, I know, because you had to break my stones last week about the Philadelphia Eagles. But nonetheless, let's get it right. The NBA draft
We
is
can talk
on.
NFL too, Q. I'm ready. I'm ready to go.
Is on a good way to start the show. I mean, how long have I been doing this NBA draft? On Thursday, our guy Jonathan Marshall at John_Marshall3, and of course, sports reporter anchor at WMUR, kind enough to join us, our NBA guru. All right, so let's get it right. The draft, the NBA draft tomorrow. I know one thing: unless the Knicks make a trade, forget it. I'm not even going to watch because we know they have no draft picks unless they make a trade to get into the draft. But all right. Appreciate a couple moments as always, pal. Let's start with last week. We were talking about potentially a landing spot for Bradley Beal, and here we go. I mean, you know, kind of encapsulate and kind of recap that move last week. Are we looking now at a super team in Phoenix?
I
don't know if you're laughing that I said NFL or you're laughing because I asked that question.
The super team. Well, it can't be a super team when the rest of your bench is questionable, right? Like,
right.
It's a team, right? A team is what? 12 guys that can actually play, right? Can get on the floor. I don't know what the rest of that roster is looking like. Yeah, you got a nice solid three. You got a super three, right? They didn't lose anything. Let's just get that out the way. What did they really lose? Landry Shamet, Chris Paul, who isn't the Chris Paul that we've known, right? So bye. You get a Bradley Beal who can average 20 a game, can give you 30 on some nights, played in 50 games. He is prone to getting hurt as of late, so it's something to watch for. The big question is, that's a lot of money for DeAndre Ayton, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant. How do you fill out the rest? Those are the only guys that are under contract, I believe, right? And so how do you fill out the rest of that roster? You have to try to move Ayton because outside of that, a bunch of guys who are on the minimum, right? Like, how are you filling out this roster? That's the biggest question. As is, there's still a lot of questions that have to be answered. I got to see how the rest of this roster shakes out. There's still a lot to be solved with this roster. But they didn't lose anything. They only gained, I will say.
And then we learn, and it's not official, but the Boston Celtics, the Clippers, and the aforementioned Wizards are working on a 3-team trade that would see the Celtics acquire your guy, Kristaps Porzingis, and the Clippers land Malcolm Brogdon. That's according to multiple sources via ESPN. You always get those third teams involved. I mean, I guess Brogdon would go from Boston to the Clippers. Wizards would receive Marcus Morris, Amir Coffey, 30th pick in this year's draft from the Clippers, and I'm sure another player from Boston as well. So we always see this, right? It's interesting because Porzingis was set to hit free agency, and he was probably going to look at about $30 million annually. Now you take him out of the equation. That's one of the players maybe the Sixers were looking at, even though Porzingis said years ago he wanted no part of the Philadelphia 76ers. But be that as it may, you can argue had arguably the best season of his career with Washington. Can you know? I think he averaged around 23.4. I think that was a career high. Relatively healthy, right? 65 games. That's something that we look for. It's still amazing. You know, here's a guy that was a third or fourth overall pick from the Knicks.
Yeah, he was amazing for you guys.
The injuries, they give up on him. They might be giving up on another player we'll get into in a moment. But all right, so is that a move where you sit there and say, here you go, now Boston? I can't even say Boston can compete with Miami because we believe they should have beat the Heat. The Heat just caught lightning in a bottle. But how about Boston now competing with, I don't know, Milwaukee? Does this put them right with Milwaukee, or does it level them off with the Philadelphia Sixers? Does it give them that added edge now coming out of the Eastern Conference if this deal goes through?
I think that the three is still the same: Milwaukee, Boston, Miami. I don't think, it changes drastically with this pick. Obviously the summer is still young. We'll see what those other teams do, but I still think they're a championship contender. You have Tatum and Brown. I think all signs point that Brown will be back. They're going to re-sign him. I think when you look at the Boston Celtics, Al Horford shouldn't be starting at this point in his career, right? So you move him to the bench. They had to get younger. They had to get more athletic. They had to get a better offensive threat because you're just relying on Rob Williams, who defensively is amazing. And then when it comes to rim runs, off the pick and roll, a lob threat, he's amazing. But a guy that can actually stretch the floor, be more consistent with this shot, just some more dynamic presence offensively. They got better there. And so you look at trading away a Malcolm Brogdon, who was a great pickup last year. They just had too many point guards, right? Marcus Smart, Derek White, Malcolm Brogdon, Peyton Pritchard. Who knows what may happen with him, but Peyton Pritchard is a valuable guy off that bench. He can be a contributor somewhere else. And so I think even if you keep a Derek White and you trade a Brogdon, Derek White is just as capable to step into that six-man role. And so I don't think they lose much. I think they've gained by improving on that front court spot. So good move for the Celtics. With the Clippers, the question is, no matter what you do, will Kawhi and PG be healthy enough? That's the biggest question, right? So Malcolm Brogdon, yes, that's a great addition. You add another ball handler, creator for those guys. But if the guys aren't on the floor, what does it matter? So that's the biggest question. Where are the Clippers going with Kawhi and PG as your duo? Have they reached the ceiling? Will we even have a chance to see what their ceiling is because of their health? And so the Clippers, to me, if they can't make any dent in the Western Conference this year, we got to figure out, okay, we gotta because you end up holding on for too long, which we're seeing in Washington now, right? They held on too long, and now they're tearing that thing down. Kuzma's going to leave probably, Porzingis is gone, Bill is gone. What are you left with? So the Clippers have to be careful.
When you see a team like Washington make some of the moves that they're doing, obviously they're emptying out, right? The cupboard's almost bare. Kyle Kuzma, right? So interesting and intriguing. A free agent available, right? Decline his player option. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent. I mean, is that a player that you just wait to see how it transpires in a couple more weeks? Or if you're a team like the Philadelphia 76ers come draft night, do you package something together with like a Harris in that contract, see if Washington's going to bite on that one and make a move for Kuzma?
Possibly. We still don't know what the James Harden situation is.
I don't think he's coming back. What does your gut tell you?
Man. See, I don't know what that deal does for Houston. I'm still confused about Houston's thought process of bringing back a James Harden. You have a top 5 pick this year. You have those young guys. It just doesn't fit their time frame and what they're doing over there. So that still confuses me. So I can see a world where James Harden actually comes back.
Is it more or less to bring him full circle, right?
Yeah.
And maybe look, it's not baseball per se or the NFL, but attendance wise, like give him some buzz, young team.
Yeah.
I see my counter to everything with James Harden is he's well past his prime. He can't elevate. He's never been a clutch player. We see what happens in the fourth quarter. He'll give you that game in November, March, maybe April, maybe May, where he's got 35 points, step back 3, here you go, you love it. But I cannot justify paying him what he's going to want. And if you're a team that does that, you're foolish. And if you're the Philadelphia 76ers that do that, I think there's going to be a major, it's going to be a major hang up. It's just, I just don't believe the roster, the way it's presently constructed, is a roster that can win now, especially in the Eastern Conference. Okay, so then what's the point of bringing him back?
Dude, I'm of the belief I'm ready to tear it down, period.
We had this conversation. We entertained the thought of maybe trading Embiid.
I'm standing steadfast on that. Like, everybody can go except Maxey. Like, I'm standing on that hill. Whoever wants to join me, I'm here. But I think the writing's on the wall, right? Like, if Harden, let's say James Harden goes to Houston, right? Then what? How are you replacing that 20-point? You can say what you want about Harden. He's not what he once was, but that's still production that you have to make up, right?
Yep.
Who is your point guard? Maxey isn't a pure point guard,
nope.
Right? So how are you replacing that production? And who are you bringing in that's going to elevate your status in the Eastern Conference? Right? Like, what are you going to do? If the goal is to win a championship, what moves can be made? If James Harden comes back, what else can we do to elevate this team amongst the Eastern Conference elite? And if James Harden leaves, the same question remains. And so I don't think the answer is clear. I think it's really foggy. Like, who are you adding to increase this, to raise the team ceiling? Right? Are they beating Miami in a 7-game series based off what we saw this year? Are they beating a Boston? Obviously not. Are they beating a healthy Milwaukee team? No.
I don't think they're beating Milwaukee or Boston, but I would give them a puncher's chance against Miami.
If
Because
Miami doesn't make any moves. If Miami gets a Dame for some, if that happens, then
well, they get a ball handler, they get a legit point guard to bring
exactly.
the ball up the floor. I just okay. He's eligible for a contract from the Sixers that is worth, now hear me out, around 210 million over 4 seasons. Okay. Does any team in their right mind,
The math on that.
you're telling me, I mean, I went to a liberal arts school, but I can figure. I can figure. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I just
50 million.
Is that well? What's a team friendly deal? James Harden wants money. He doesn't give a crap about a team friendly deal. So what kind of numbers are we looking at? I mean, that's the problem. And I'm telling you, there is this disconnect, man. Because then you get Doc saying what he says because he was shown the door.
Yeah.
Nick Nurse has that personality where we're running your ass into the ground, man. You better be able to play 35, 38 minutes a night. And these guys are getting older, right? He had the hamstring issues here and there. So I don't know. If you were to say to me, what's your problem with this? I would counter, what's the benefit of bringing him back? Because you're ultimately going to lose to Boston, Milwaukee in 7 games.
Yeah.
So then why even bring him back?
That's assuming Embiid's even healthy at that point.
Correct.
That's another question mark. So I don't know what the upside with this roster is. What are you adding to this? Even if Harden comes back or if Harden leaves, what move is out there to elevate this team?
I mean,
the free agent cupboard is bare as far as like a splash. Like it's Fred VanVleet. Like these are the type of names we're dealing. Solid players, but these aren't guys that are going to championship now. Like,
well, you were looking at maybe like Damian Lillard, as you mentioned. Porzingis, forget about it. Beal, forget about it. The cover, it's even beyond bare. And here's the other thing: I don't hear a lot of people talking about this. Harden took less money with Philadelphia to basically help them with the roster. You really think he's going to turn around now and say, "Yeah, why not bend me over one more time"? It's not going to happen. He wants a max contract this time around.
No draft picks this year.
Nope.
For the Sixers. So, even if you wanted to make a trade, you don't even have a first round this year to sort of sweeten the deal for a team. You don't even have the option to add a possible rotation player, a young guy that you can develop with this team. So outside of Maxey, they don't even have a pipeline of young guys developing right now, right? Look at the Denver Nuggets team. You got Shakur the Joker, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr. You got a Christian Braun who's developing. You got a guy who people don't know about right now, Peyton Watson, who could be a player one day. We'll see. But Denver just traded into the first round this year. They added a 29th pick and a 32nd pick.
They're not resting on their laurels.
Because they know the way it's set up right now, you may not be able to afford these guys, or Bruce Brown may leave. So we got to keep this never-ending cycle of draft picks coming in. We got to nail these draft picks. We got to get these guys developed. We got to keep it going. I look at the Sixers. To me, they're stuck. They're stuck. You have a bunch. You have a guy in Joel Embiid who had his best year, MVP, right?
Right.
He's getting older. His body, I don't know how much more it's going to last.
It's breaking down.
Tobias Harris, he is what he is, overpaid. James Harden is old, and you can't rely on him come playoff time. To me, it's the makings of a team that's they're holding on too long. The Washingtons, the Portland Trailblazers, the Chicagos, the Sixers are a year away from being in that category. You're waiting too long. You're waiting too long.
Yeah, and you have other teams ascending as well. And you mentioned with VanVleet with the big money offer the Raptors put back in return. So it does assume, you seem that signs are pointing for him to return to Toronto. Nice player, but that's the NBA though. You can get stuck in purgatory pretty fast. And we talked about this the last couple of years, the window, it's closing. I got hammered for keep saying it. We were going back and forth talking about it, but that's the NBA. I mean, it is what it is. If there's a team out there, think about this. Indiana's got 3 picks in the first round, 7, 26, and 29. So do you think you'll see some movement from Indiana come draft night?
I think so. Tobias Harris, his name has come up as far as like an option. His expiring contract that's probably the most valuable asset that they have on this roster.
Superstar contract for an average player.
That's what it is. It's frustrating to watch. It's frustrating to watch. And so maybe if the Sixers can get into the first round, I think those teams are multiple picks. Houston has 2 picks, right?
Yeah.
Brooklyn has 2 picks.
Yep.
Anytime a team has 2 first-round picks, I think they're a key players. So Indiana is definitely a team to watch out for, especially with Tobias Harris' name being brought up and a couple other names too. So yeah, that's definitely a viable option.
Jonathan Marshall joining us as the NBA draft is Thursday night, not the friggin' NFL draft. I mean, what the hell? Do I need to get my special coffee cooking and brewing over here?
Watch too much Daniel Jones highlights over there, huh?
Was that?
Watch too much Daniel Jones highlights. Watching the film.
35 touchdowns this year, 6 picks.
That's it? Wow. I'm shocked.
35 and 6?
6. I thought he had more 6. I thought he had more than 6.
No, I'm saying that's what he's going to throw.
Oh, that's what he's going to
throw for.
That's what he's going to throw. You think so?
Wishful thinking. All right. So we know that the big man. Oh, yeah. I'm going to butcher his name. Wembanyama.
Wembanyama.
That's close enough. We know the sun comes up tomorrow. The Spurs take the 19-year-old. Yeah. We know that. I think Miller gets grabbed at number 2 by the Hornets. You tell me what you think. And then Portland, I mean, you hear the name Henderson out there, right? I mean, is that? I
like Scoot. I'm a Scoot Henderson fan. I think look, when they talk about this draft class, it was always Vic, obviously, but they said Scoot is the second overall best prospect. And in next year's draft, he would be the top pick. And possibly the year after, he would be the top pick. So pure talent-wise, Scoot is the second best prospect. I think Charlotte's situation is basketball fit with LaMelo, right? For me, I'm still picking Scoot Henderson.
Okay, let me ask you this then. I mean, does we know Jordan sold the team?
Apparently, he still has a say in their decision, which that's based off his decision making with the draft.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like you're getting ready to walk through the door, and you're gonna, tell me how to rearrange the furniture. I mean, come on, man.
I wouldn't trust it. I wouldn't trust it.
No, I wouldn't. So, in your eyes, you said Henderson is the better prospect than Miller. Am I correct?
I like Henderson better. I do.
Okay.
But I don't think there's much. I wouldn't say there's much separation, right? I think the top 3 is clear. Those are the 3 guys who are the top prospects.
Well, number 2, 3, 4, they're consolation prizes.
Exactly. Right. But I think Scoot and Brandon Miller, I don't think there's much. I wouldn't say Scoot is just far and above and beyond the better player. But I think in a point guard's league and what Scoot offers at his age, the athleticism, the explosion, what he brings to the court, man, I think he could be a top 5 point guard in this league. And don't get me wrong, Brandon Miller at his size can shoot it.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah. You go 6'2" to 6'9". Now you want to stick 6'2", ball dominant, limited shooter with who you going to pair with LaMelo, right? So
it's a basketball fit thing.
Yeah, exactly. 6'9", shot maker. Yeah. Miller. Listen, I watched a ton of this kid in college. He's a big time player. The off the court stuff, I'm not a fan of it. I didn't like that he still was able to play. I know in the NFL, when we get into that type of conversation, it's always, quote, red flags.
Yeah.
Is it vastly different in your eyes in the NBA, where the NFL, this guy's, his draft status is going to, it's really going to drop, and here you go. But in the NBA, it almost seems like, yeah, all right, whatever. Draft him.
It's a player's league. If you can hoop, get the ball in the bucket.
Fair point.
We're gonna get you. So
fair point.
I never thought this Brandon Miller situation was going to drop his stock. He's a very talented player. Look, I think Charlotte, whoever they go with, they're going to get a really talented player. And whoever's left at number 3, Portland's in a sweet spot. If I'm getting Miller or Henderson, I'm good.
Yeah, no doubt.
Whoever's left.
Guard heavy, man. Houston at 4. You've got Detroit at 5, and then Orlando at 6, man. So young players, man. I'm looking at 19, 20-year-olds. I mean, all right, let's start with those 3 teams, right? So I mentioned Houston. There's a lot of talk about the kid Thompson. He's just 20 years old. And then you got the kid Walker. I see a couple mock drafts with him going to the Pistons. I guess he's kind of locked in that 5 to 9 spot right now. Versatile. I guess you tell me, a bigger, higher ceiling than Thompson. So where do you see at 4 and 5, and then we'll get to Orlando at 6.
Yeah, I think all signs point to Amin Thompson. His twin brother is Asar Thompson. I think Amin, he's more of a playmaker, athleticism. If you watch these guys play, just the way they move, it's so fluid. They glide in the air with the ball. Like, it's just, I love watching basketball players who have that sort of fluidity. And
Yeah.
so they have a teachable skill set, or they've shown signs of a skill set that can be developed. In addition to that, just athleticism, I think it can be special. So you put him in Thompson with that Jalen Green, Jabari Smith, Alfred Seguin, Tari Eason core. I think that's a great situation for Houston to develop those guys.
And then they're sitting at 4. And then you got 5. You got the Detroit Pistons, a couple nice players. That's a young team, starting to learn how to win a little bit, but they definitely, they're on the right path, so to speak. What direction do you think they go? Do you think they go with the kid Walker?
Yeah, I think Jarris Walker. I mean, they have Jalen Duren, James Wiseman. If you add a Walker to that front court, that's a physically imposing front court. Jalen Duren is really a physical marvel. And James Wiseman is still developing, so we'll see. But Jarris Walker, I think he possibly adds some shooting, some scoring ability to that front court, some physicality to that front court, in addition to Cade Cunningham and Jay and Ivy in the backcourt. I think Jarris Walker would be a solid pick for them. I think he would.
All right, then you got Orlando. And listen, that's another team that has the young stud, right? They got the kid Wagner. I mean, that's I watched a little bit of this kid, and again, I'll butcher the name. What is it? Banchero?
Banchero.
Yeah. I like him.
He's nice.
He's a nice player, man. So I can see them looking to maybe go the point guard route again, facilitator. What's the name you're hearing?
I can see them going. I mean, you mentioned point guard. I can see a Anthony Black out of Arkansas. I like him as far as just sheer playmaking ability at his size, 6'6", 6'7", great size at the point guard spot, right? And also, I mean, look, why not take a flyer on the other Thompson twin, Asar Thompson, right? Yep. So I think Orlando at 6, and they have a pick at 11 too. They can be really flexible. Maybe you don't find your point guard at the 11 spot. Maybe you find it at the 6 spot, or vice versa. Maybe you draft an Asar Thompson and draft your point guard at number 11, because we'll talk about a point guard out of Kentucky that I really like, that they may be able to get him at 11, Cason Wallace. We'll see. So I think Orlando, there's a lot of flexibility there. So I can see going with the Thompson twin, or even a point guard, Anthony Black.
Yeah, I saw Thompson. If he's there, he might fall to 8. I mean, think about it, because Washington now needs the best, quote, player available once they get rid of, or they traded away Beal. You got Indiana at number 7. I mean, you tell me. I look at the kid Hendricks. Yeah. He looks like a pacer.
Yeah, he does. That 3 and D. He has the fine.
Improve their shooting and defense. Yeah,
right. He's still raw. Not a lot of creativity with the ball as far as playmaking, but you have Tyrese Halliburton there. But I think he'd be a great developmental prospect for them. I'm high on the kid from Villanova, Cam Whitmore. I tend to trust Villanova guards too, and Kentucky guards. Cam Whitmore, physically, just he's ready from day one.
What about the medicals?
That's the thing. That's the big question, right? But hey, Michael Porter Jr. had issues with his medicals for Denver, right? So sometimes you got to take a chance on those guys if the talent's there. I think for Cam Whitmore, the talent's there. You put him in Indiana with Tyrese Halliburton, Benedict Mathurin. I think that could be a talented trio right there for Indiana.
Yeah, listen, the top 10, your lottery guys. I mean, that's what you want, right? I mean, that's
talent.
Yep, absolutely. You've got Washington at 8. I mentioned the kid Thompson, and then Utah. We just mentioned Whitmore, perhaps, and then you got Dallas at 10. So round out the top 10 with those last 3 teams.
Man, Washington, right? They need talent. It's pretty much the best. I think Washington, look, we're tearing it down. Bill's going, Kuzma's probably leaving, Porzingis is gone probably. We got to get the best talent. If Anthony Black is there from Arkansas, I'll take him. You got to get that point guard of the future. I would lock that in there. I think that would be an easy pick. But if Cam Whitmore's there, if Anthony Black is gone, Cam Whitmore's there, you take Whitmore. I think between those 2 guys, if they're still there, you got to take them. You have to.
Who's a player that you've kind of looked at and you said, he's probably going to go 10 to 15, maybe 10 to 20, but man, I'll tell you, the right fit, he can be a top 10 player.
Wallace from Kentucky. Casey Wallace. Probably to me the best defensive guard in the college basketball, probably in this draft. I mean, just quick hands. He's pinning shots to the backboard, and he showed more creativity than I think people thought he had coming out of high school. He's from Texas. I just look at him, man. He doesn't wow you with his size. He doesn't wow you with his athleticism, but he's athletic enough. I think he is a guy. You get him in your system, he's going to contribute to winning basketball. A comparison that I've heard from him is a Drew Holiday type. And you just can't bet against a Kentucky guard. Like, he's the last Kentucky guard that failed. Malik Monk even found his way in Sacramento, right? Like, he's a high-scoring guy off the bench. Jamal Murray, Devin Booker, SGA, Tyler Hero, Tyrese Maxey. I tend to bet on a Kentucky guard, right? And a lot of times for these guards from Kentucky, we don't see their full talents at Kentucky, right? Like, nobody thought SGA would be who we saw.
Right.
Like, even Jamal Murray, right? Devin Booker. Most people probably can't remember their big plays or their highlights from Kentucky. But once they get out of Kentucky, because you're playing with fellow talented guys at Kentucky, you got to share the rock. Even Emmanuel Quickly, your guy in New York, like, he's a solid player. And so I think once these guys, they get to Kentucky, Coach Kai has a great way of evaluating, and these guys develop clearly. They get to the NBA and they just flourish. And I'm willing to bet on Casey Wallace being another Kentucky guard that flourishes. It may not be top 5, top 6, top 8, but a team that gets him at 10 and below, they're going to be very happy. Very happy. All
right. If you were a betting man, since show is BYP back your play, would you back your play and say that Zion gets traded tomorrow night?
You're hearing so many things, right? Tomorrow night.
That would have to be like it would be a huge.
I don't think he gets traded tomorrow.
Okay.
I mean, I'm trying to think what deal is out there. I guess it's the Portland deal, right? The third pick, Zion, the Portland.
Yeah, here's my issue. And I hate to use this word, but you're a former number 1 overall pick. Okay. You played in I wrote it on my notes, 114 games over your first 4 seasons. You've missed 194.
Yeah.
That reeks of a bust. It's a strong word because when he's on the floor, we see the flashes, but he's not on the floor. Plus now you have the off the court drama. So then it's like, who would want him?
Yeah. The more I think the Pelicans are shopping him. Don't get me wrong, right? And I think
Portland's number 3 and 23 overall picks. You mentioned it.
Right. I think if there was a deal to be had, that Portland deal makes the most sense.
Because they want to keep the All-Star happy.
Exactly. If in New Orleans you get the third pick, could be Scoot or Miller. Boom, we're right back at it, right? Yeah. You get the point guard if it's Scoot. To me, that works out perfectly for the Pelicans, right? You still keep Brandon Ingram, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy. You're there. You're good. But like you said, which team actually wants to give up viable pieces or draft assets to take a chance on a guy? We don't know if his head is in the game. He really loves his game. Does he really want to work on his craft? Does he want to be in shape? Is he going to be healthy? Oh, and the off the court stuff too. That's a whole nother.
You're strengthening my argument right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Man. Yeah. I mean, because you haven't heard a lot of chatter lately as far as the Zion trade rumors, but that's what happens, right? When you least expect it.
I'm going to give you one right now. How about the Knicks? And hear me out. Listen, I don't want New York. No, I don't. What?
You want Zion in New York?
No, I don't. But for objectivity, for fodder, for the show, I gotta put that on the back burner. You've got tradable assets, right? Yeah. Quigley, Barrett, Robinson. Listen, if they trade back in to get draft picks or to get into the draft, then Toppin is going to be packaged. Yeah. And talk about a bust, again, pull the numbers. He's 25 years old, lottery pick, 3 years in, had to sit behind Randall, who had the All-Star season his rookie year. He's averaging 8 points, and he was number 8th overall draft pick in 2020. It just hasn't panned out.
Yeah.
So if you're the Knicks, do you make that one big splash? I'll take that as a no.
Imagine Zion in New York.
I mean,
The
listen,
drama, the front page of the blogs and
I don't
papers.
know.
And
His scores open 24/7. I don't know.
listen, if he found trouble in New Orleans,
That's a fair point.
he's going to find trouble in New York, the city
Yeah,
that never sleeps, right?
that's a fair point. I know we mentioned this last week. We both believe, obviously, Denver, uh, is going to be the team to beat. We talked a little bit about, the Eastern Conference. The Morant stuff, you and I have touched on it at great length. I think it was a slap on the wrist. I don't give a crap if it's a lighter gun or not, or whatever. 25 games, that is just enough to almost shut people up, but a small amount where we're not going to screw your season. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it took 2 weeks to decide this, but you listen to Silver. I think I was texting you and tweeting it out when he was talking. I think it was during the lottery when he was interviewed, and he just really don't want to get into it, and I get it. But you heard him say we're extremely disappointed. This, that, the other thing. I mean, 25 games to me, it's not sending a message.
Yeah.
It's not.
Based off how Adam Silver was speaking, I was bracing for like a 50-game suspension.
So I was bracing for a whole season. Yeah.
I thought it was 50, right? I thought it would be 50. In the grand scheme of things, 10 games, 25 games, 50 games, Ja has to get right regardless, right? Like, if he doesn't want to get right, no amount of games is going to make him realize it, right? Like, you can change the city, you can get suspended for this amount of games, but if you don't want to do the work, if you don't want to change, if you don't realize that there's a problem, you can make all your statements. The statements ring hollow at this point because your actions behind those words show nothing, right? And so, to me, it's not so much about the amount of time that he's missing, but what are you doing during that time to actually change, right? Like, you can get suspended for a year, but if you're not doing anything productive to better yourself within that year, then what are we doing, right? Like, so the grand scheme of things, Ja has to get the help. And that's what I look at. Is the league, are the Grizzlies, are they making sure Ja really realizes the situation? It's a very, his life, forget basketball. He's putting his life in danger and those around him in danger because of the image that he's putting out there. Like, you're going to attract certain energies by putting that out there on social media. And so 25 games, 50 games, if Ja's not doing the work, it's not going to matter. You know what I mean? And it may not ever matter, unfortunately, right? And so if Ja does mess up again, though, season's over. Like, I can see them doing a full season suspension for the next year. If Ja tries it again, because he got one warning, right?
Yeah.
And he did it again. That's three times if you do it again, 3 times. So Ja just has to make sure he has to make this time count. That's just what it comes down to.
Yeah, but I'll argue the one point that you brought up I don't agree with is Memphis doing everything to let him know, what he's to paraphrase, that what he's doing or this path is doing. It's hard for me to sit here and say you're 22, 23, 24, 25, and you're making hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, look, we were all young once. We were all stupid. We all did foolish things, no doubt. I just, if I worked for that and earned that at that age, I mean, would I be kind of foolish? Yeah. I'm not going to sit here and wax poetic, get on the soapbox, but foolish and being just dumb and just trying to be something you're not are two totally different things. And there's probably this element of not being able to get rid of, certain friends who are convenient friends. Now, all of a sudden, hey, man, we want you to make that money because you're going to take care of us, right? The entourage, the posse, whatever. But man, you read into it and you take a step back, and it's just crazy the amount of money that these young players are
Wow.
making. It's it's generational wealth. And you just also have to wonder, the mindset, the pressure that comes with it, or the air of invincibility. I can do whatever I want to do without being held accountable comes with it. And as you mentioned, that's a player he's either going to get it right or he's going to find out, the hard way. By the way, before I let you go, speaking of the hard way, I know you're a college hoops guy. Um, Bob Huggins, I mean, come on, man. And again, to me, it does seem and sound like he does have a problem when it comes to drinking.
Yes. Yeah.
And I mean, this is what, the second time, right? Didn't he get pinched before?
Yeah. Yeah. We have enough knowledge at this point to realize how serious drinking and driving is.
Absolutely.
You have enough information. We've seen the stories. It was the Raiders wide receiver, Henry Ruggs, right? We saw that situation, right? And more oftentimes than not, those impacted isn't even the person
Of
doing
course
the
not.
drive.
No.
Usually those innocent bystanders minding their business, doing the right thing, that are impacted. And their family.
The drunks are always loose while they're driving. They don't tense up. I mean, everyone knows that. You learn that in high school when you take your driving. They always talk about it. How come
Yeah,
the drunk guys, the drunk
yeah,
people never get killed in these crashes? Because
yeah,
they're just
exactly.
loosey goosey.
Right. And so for Huggins, he has to get help, because if there's truly an issue, and this truly, this isn't the first time this has happened, obviously that wasn't a wake up call. So God forbid it happens again. It's even, who knows what can happen after that. So it's like, man,
But
at this point in your career, in your life too, like you're not a young kid, right? Like,
he's 69 years old. But do you also think, too, at insult to injury, the handwriting was on the wall because he had that anti-gay slur during the
yeah,
radio interview, a live radio
yeah,
interview, where you just
yeah,
kind of figure the university is like, you know what? And I think he was on the last year of his contract, too.
yeah.
So it's
I
like,
mean, he was already on thin ice. I
yeah,
mean, just
that's exactly.
one more thing, and this isn't a little situation. Like, this is huge. Like, this is life and death that we're talking about. You're putting people's lives in danger, and so it's unfortunate, but obviously there's an issue here, and he has to seek that help. He has to before it's too late.
Are you going to have a draft party tomorrow? What do you do? Do you lock in?
I lock in. I lock in, Q. I'm on Twitter. I tried to see it too much because now these insiders like to give up the pick before
Horrible,
I
man.
don't like. I
Yeah,
can't
I
stand
can't
it.
get into that crap. Let
I,
me enjoy it. Don't
I
spoil it.
I can't stand it. I'm looking at some sleepers who might rise up, guys who actually may slip. That's the exciting part to me. There's always a couple guys who may rise up or guys that
Give me
drop
one
down.
or two.
Man, that may rise up. Colby Buffkin, Michigan. I'm a fan of his. Great score, 6'6", can defend a little bit too. He's a guy that I think may sneak up into the lottery. May not be on the radar for most people, but Kobe Buffkin's a guy. Bryce Sensabaugh, Ohio State freshman, one of the best scorers in the country. He's a guy who looking like it's gonna be a late round pick, like a maybe 20-ish range. But I think whoever gets him in that range is gonna knock it out the park. Those are two names I'm looking at for sure. Bryce Sensabaugh, Kobe Buffkin.
Now you need to tweet that out prior too.
It's like I tweeted, I said the Spurs were going to win the lottery, and they did it. They did it. So,
well, I mean, it's obviously rigged. I mean, come on, man.
I read the script, Q. I read the script.
I
did. I did.
Too
Oh,
funny.
Trace Jackson Davis, too, another name. 4-year player from Indiana, one of my favorite guys. Indiana, I love his game, Q. So it may be late first, early second, but whoever gets him, he's going to be a hooper.
Yeah. I wonder if the kid came out from Purdue, where he would have went to center.
I wouldn't draft him. He made the right choice. Get that NIL money, because
you don't think he would have been drafted?
He probably would have been drafted second round. I wouldn't pick him. What role does he have in the game today?
Oh, that's a fair point.
I mean, he can find a spot because he's tall, and can't teach height. But as far as being a contributing player,
just another yeah, and because the game is not predicated on the center anymore.
It's not. And if you're a center, you got to be different. You got to be like Joker.
But is he? Do you really consider him a center?
He's the center of that offense. It evolves around him.
Oh, that's a fair point. But I mean, when you think about it, he is,
Point center,
yeah.
maybe. Point
Well,
center, maybe.
I think he's like a hybrid. Like he
Yeah.
just he reminds me of. See, I can't. It's hard for me to compare some of these guys who say like Magic because people forget Magic wasn't the best defender. He was a ridiculous point guard and a scoring guard, but he also wasn't the best shooter. But we looked 6'9",
Yeah.
rebound, assist, can score, jump it up if need be, right? Against the Sixers in the finals when Kareem went out. Joker is just
He's a center in the sense that if he has to get a bucket on the low post, he's going to get that bucket.
100%. Well, he's going to
And he does
bulldoze
it better
down
than,
the boulevard. Yeah.
does it better than any other big guys in the league on a
Yeah.
consistent basis.
Can you imagine though sticking him in say like the 80s? Ooh. Oh, Shaq. I mean, some of these guys, they would have spit out his lunch. Are you kidding me? Think Moses Malone,
Hakeem, Elijah Wan would have been
Elijah Wine. Elijah
David
Wine was more finesse, man. Those two guys were more finesse. I'm saying get your ass on the low block and try to dominate me.
Yeah,
Malone was not going to allow that to happen.
Oh, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. It'd be, I mean, I wish we could, honestly. I wish there was a way to take players from that era to this. We'll never know.
Can't do it because that would kill the people that to this day still want to debate LeBron and Jordan when they're entirely two different players.
Entirely two different players. And look, you're never going to change anybody's mind on that conversation. Like I think our opinions on that are set in stone. There's nothing LeBron can do to change it. Like
right.
MJ to me he's number one. So
he did things
different. It's just different.
Yeah.
Like, my argument for MJ over Bron is if you take a person who doesn't even watch basketball, right? Any age, and you put on highlights of MJ at his peak and Bron at his peak and say, which player do you want to watch?
They would 23.
Like 23, he's like flying through the air. I want to watch
100%. 100%.
To me, that's the epitome of a basketball player.
100%.
That's it.
Freaking guy comes out of retirement and drops 55 against the Knicks. And by the way, it still showed you, even though he was rusty, the respect that they doubled him on that last play, and then he found who was the center? Wellington.
Bill Winnington.
Yeah, when he saw him cut right under the St. John's product, right under the basket for the game winner. I remember that game. I have it on VHS day.
He was fresh out playing baseball, Q, off a diet of Hennessy and cigars. And gambling and AC all night, still dropping.
Yeah. Going from 45 to 23.
Come on. Smoking cigars all night. Come on.
I mean, listen, that's, only the select few can do that. So, all right, we'll wrap it up. We'll recap the draft next week. Yeah. Maybe we'll dive into NFL since I kind of start the show.
You're talking if I'm ready. Look, those Georgia Bulldogs East.
Oh my God! Enough already. We got what 9? How many more weeks?
Training camp's about to get started next month. It's almost here. Y'all better lock up Saquon because your offense is looking light right now. Let's go. Lock them up, Q. That's your offense. Wildcat Saquon. I want the Wildcat offense. Let's do it. You know it's true. You don't want Danny Dimes diming too much. Come on. Truth hurts.
The confidence of the young man. All right, brother. Appreciate you. Always enjoy the draft tomorrow night.
All right, Q.